We're now going to test Google Gemini and their deep research mode. So again, I'm signed into my Google account, Gemini Advanced. So I'm currently paying for the advanced version, but you can also do deep research in the free mode as well. So I'm going to copy and paste the same prompt, the exact same prompt that we've just tried in ChatGPT. And from the drop down, I've made sure that I've picked the deep research mode there. And you can tell that it's on because it says deep research here before I hit go. So I'm going to submit that request. And Gemini works a little bit differently to ChatGPT. It doesn't typically ask you any clarifying questions. Oh, got an advert there for VO2. Let's say no, thank you. What it does is it tells you the plan. So it says, here's the plan I've put together. Let me know if you need any changes before I start researching. So before it works, it tells you exactly what it's going to do and in what order. So it says here it's going to research websites, and it's telling us exactly what it is actually going to research. I typically don't, to be quite honest, read these too closely because it looks sensible to me. Then it says when it's finished reading all that, it's going to analyse the results, create a report, and it estimates it'll be ready in a few minutes. So you have the option here to either edit the plan or start the research. And because I asked a relatively comprehensive question, I think that the approach sounds fine. Obviously, if it's an area that you've got more awareness of, it's going to be more interesting to review that list, and it might be that you've got a strong opinion that it needs to do a section it's not actually asked for. So you could click edit plan and say, please include X or please remove Y. But instead, I'm going to click start research. And again, like many of these modes, it just takes a moment to get started. And Gemini automatically brings up the thinking window, if you like. It says, as soon as your report's ready, I'll let you know. And in the meantime, feel free to leave this chat. So these are autonomous processes. Once you've set them off, they carry on unless you stop them. And again, you get a feel for what it's up to here. It says Global AI Regulation Comparison, researching 8 websites. On this right-hand side, you can click here to show thinking or show the sites that are browsed. So very much like ChatGPT, you can flick between the websites. One thing you'll notice that Gemini does very differently to ChatGPT is it typically looks at a lot more websites straight away. So we're already up to 24. And if you remember, I think we were at about 8 in the previous one. But let's go back to showing the thinking. And you can see here you've got this thread, and it organizes it slightly differently. And it works through what it's actually doing. So research focus, EU as a starting point, next steps, researching websites. And let's see which ones it's picked. Artificial Intelligence Act.eu, epic.org. There's a EU website there, which looks familiar. And Amazon.com link to an EU AI Act book by the looks of it. There's a few different sites there. So I've gathered some initial insights, it's saying here, and it's starting to summarize what that means. And then it's doing some further bits and bobs here, and it's saying research. And so now it's coming to look for the UK. It's expanded the number of sites it's looking at, and I can see lots of what look like very relevant sources like the government.uk site, etc. So a lot more sites that it's actually checking. And it's already up to 34, as it says on the summary here. We've got the denotion of where it's at here on this circle, which looks like it's about a quarter of the way through what it thinks it's going to need to do. And we're in the thinking mode here still, and it's even looking for more websites. So let's check back when it's got more to report. It's carried on working, and we're now up to 56 websites. And you can see the process here. It's gone through thinking about the UK, and now it's moved on to the US. And you can see little snippets of what it's finding and what it's thinking as it works through. For example, here it's saying implications for Isle of Man, finalising the analysis. And you can see here it says, I believe I have a comprehensive understanding of the key aspects requested, and my next step is to synthesise this information into a structured comparison. So it's working through those last bits that we've asked for. saying that it's got the 56 websites and sort of halfway through. But quite often, a bit like it used to joke about the Microsoft length of time, it'll suddenly quickly finish up more quickly than it looked like it would. On the sites browsed here, it's saying actually researched 76 websites, 79. So this is at a higher figure than that count there. And you can see all of the ones that are listed. So we'll come back when it's finished to see what the end result looks like. Okay, the report has finished generating now, and you can see it's now filling the right-hand window. And it says, feel free to ask me follow-up questions or request changes. Navigating the Labyrinth, a comparative analysis of AI regulation in the EU, UK and US and implications for Isle of Man tech companies. So this didn't ask me any follow-up questions, and therefore we didn't clarify that we were interested in other destinations, which maybe we want to go back in and sort of throw that into the mix. But using the exact same prompt, it has done what I've asked. So we've got an executive summary at the front. So this is more like a report format that you might be used to having to do for work. And it says it's providing a comparison. Let's see, is there a summary at the front here? It's summarising the approaches, though. The UK is pursuing a pro-innovation, principles-led strategy. US presents a more fragmented landscape. So this is mirroring what the first report said, which makes me feel that it's probably accurate. It's another good reason why doing two is helpful. Key differences emerge in their definitions, approaches to risk management and the governance. So that's interesting. And it says, obviously, EU in particular has profound implications due to its extraterritorial scope. For Isle of Man companies operating internationally, understanding these differences is important. So it's quite a lengthy report. Let's just flick down to see if we've got summaries at the end that are helpful. So number 3 is an overview of EU. And again, it's coming up with the information that we need, which is correct by the looks of it here, and key obligations. That's really helpful, summarising all that for us. It's actually got into more detail here than the previous one, which you may or may not find helpful. There is a criticism that is levelled at Gemini by quite a few people I've seen, is that it's quite verbose. Again, that will depend on the type of question you have, whether that's a good thing for you or not. Personally, I like to feel that it's got everything covered, and then you can always summarise further and cut it down further. It's easier to go that way around than to try and grow something. And it even talks about definitions of AI literacy there, which is really helpful. So coming down now to the UK, it's summarising this. And again, it's pulling out the fact that there was that 2023 white paper. So it does seem that that was a foundational bit of document to be aware of. What's in that? The evolving landscape. And here we go. It's making references to something that happened in 2025. So it is up to date there, which is really good. And we keep flicking through, and then we get to the US, and it's bringing out some specifics here. But again, it's saying 2023 there under President Biden, but it's referencing something that happened in January 2025. So it's listing out some different federal agencies. So this is giving us more direction of where we might want to go next to understand what's going on, and obviously talking about the state level information here. And this is all looking really helpful. Keep going now. So we get to the section where it's saying comparative analysis. This is the important bit. This is what we wanted it to do for us. So navigating where it diverges and where it converges. So fundamental approaches, it's saying a summary there of the different regulatory strategies. So that's really helpful. It says defining it is a moving target potentially, and that's an interesting thing to be aware of. And it's saying, obviously, what constitutes it can trigger different obligations. So Again, we need to keep an eye on that if that definition is different in a different organ in a different country to ours. Risk management philosophies, governance, enforcement and penalties. So this is very comprehensive, and it's come back here, and this is interesting. It's given us a table, a comparative overview, which might be a helpful way to summarize that information. So again, implications. So this is the bit that we were really interested in. It says, if we operate internationally or aspire, we must carefully navigate the complex and evolving regulatory landscape. It's saying focus on EU AI Act, which again is the summary that the other document said. And it's making reference to this again is clever. It's brought in aligning with the Isle of Man's national AI strategy and Activate AI programme. So obviously we don't have that yet. It's developing, but the Activate AI programme, as you know, is well underway. So it's aligning its thinking with that, and it's also pulling in its information about what it knows about the Isle of Man, things like fintech and e-gaming. So it's gone above and beyond, and it's coming back with some practical compliance steps, which all looks really helpful. Still going on, we've got another table here, key regulatory considerations and action points for an Isle of Man tech company. So it's saying specific requirements, and these are all under the EU AI Act auspice there. Although it's saying for the UK, adherence to the 5 principles of safety, transparency, fairness, accountability, and contestability is interesting there to get ahead of things. US, again, talking about transparency and bias impact assessments. So it is giving some very broad principles, which would be really helpful for anyone that's looking at working in this space. So actionable guidance has come down to at the end. And that's the kind of content that would be really helpful for me as a course module by the looks of it. So it has done what I wanted. And even going to as far as at the end here saying anticipating future trends in global regulation. And it thinks there's going to be more international coordination despite the current divergences, because it's talking about initiatives like the OECD and the G7 discussions. And there we go. At the end, it's listing out all those different sources it actually used within the report, and it's separately listing out the sources it read but didn't use. And you have the option to export that to a Google Doc straight away, which is really helpful. You can also generate an audio overview. So this is a helpful feature if you're trying to learn something. So if we'd asked it to tell us all about the EU IA Act, for example, and then we want to learn what that means, you could generate an audio overview and have that play whilst you go out for a walk or as you're driving home. You can just copy and paste that thread into a separate document, like a Word document if you wanted to, and you can also close down that window there. So similarly to the ChatGPT, you can carry on and ask questions. So what other key countries should we also consider? Let's see how it answers that question for us. Just thinking about that. It's actually kicked it into a separate research question, which I don't think I want to commit to at the moment, but that's interesting. So it feels that that's something that needs more thought than just responding China and Japan. It's saying identify 3 to 4 additional key countries that have notable AI strategies. So again, we could kick that off if we wanted to. But if I open the document and ask the question, which other key country should I add into the mix? Let's see if it answers that straight away or not. Again, I don't know if it's kicking itself into deep research mode because we're already in the deep research with 2.5 Pro selector here. I think I've confused it now. It's taking a long time. Yes, it's come back again trying to do a new deep research. But if I just choose the selector there and go into Flash, yeah, no, it's bringing up a different question. So it doesn't work in quite the same way that ChatGPT does for that. But the way I would handle that is, let me just get the window back open again. I would download the original research paper as the document as it asks us to do. And then what you can do is reattach it into a new chat window, as we've already discussed. And then you can ask questions of that, or you can combine it with the other deep research paper we got from ChatGPT, and again, ask any questions that we have in a new ChatGPT window. So I am generally really impressed with the information I get from the Google documents, and I like the format. So if you are writing something for work, clearly you need to check the sources and you need to double check that it is actually bringing back accurate information. But I have never found an issue with that, with this. And because it's already in that kind of format, it does speed up getting an outline report ready, that gives you a good starting point. Obviously, you want to edit it for it to be in your own tone and to check that everything is correct. But it certainly saves a lot of time, I find. But that's Gemini's deep research mode.